All right, what is going on, everybody? Today we are back. We are Soul of the Skull for the first time in 2 days, shy of a month. It's been a long time. We've been busy, lots of school, college life, things going on,
Mm-hmm.
and finally we were able to make it back today for an episode. Hopefully, we can make it back next week as well for an episode as we prepare for the draft. And then, spoiler, maybe not spoiler, I don't know, maybe we've mentioned it before. Hopefully, we're going to do another live one on that Thursday night. So 2 weeks from yesterday, April 25th. We're hoping to do that again. And yeah, that is that. So that's kind of the latest updates. It's been a while, but we're happy to be back and we're happy to talk about the Vikings. We've still been thinking about the Vikings all the days we haven't been filming an episode, and lots of information has been leaking out recently. Sometimes you don't know what to believe, what's a smoke screen, what information's coming from where. But here we are to break it all down yet again today. So here we are, 13 days out from the first round of the draft. The Vikings hold picks 11 and 23. Yeah, that's right, 23. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Was
Yep.
that the Jordan Addison pick, 23? Anyone?
It was in the early 20s.
Because Justin Jefferson was 22, and I thought Jordan Addison was 23. But
I just remember he was Quentin Johnston was picked before Addison.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was. Didn't it go Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison? No. Hold on.
Addison was before Flowers because the Ravens did better than the Vikings last year.
Oh.
Pretty sure.
Well,
I think.
I thought it went. I could be wrong on this because didn't Jackson Smith-Njigba go before the Vikings?
He went early in the first round.
They went 4 in a row. I know that. It was Quentin Johnston first. Then I thought it was Flowers, Smith-Njigba, and then Jordan, but I could be wrong. I have really no idea anymore.
Yeah. Oh no, Flowers was the pick before. Yeah, it was Quentin. It was Njigba, Johnston, Flowers, then Addison. So you're right.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, it was JSN 20th overall. 21st was Quentin Johnston. 22nd was Zay. 23rd was Jordan Addison. So the Vikings hold that same pick number again. Good for them. So the Vikings have options. Obviously, they can move up. We've seen a lot of information about what it would take to move up. Will it take 3 first? Will it take 3 and more to move up? Will it not take that? We'll just have to see. So I'm going to ask. So we're going to start by going around, and we're just going to say right now, what would your ideal situation for the draft be right now? I guess I'll start. I'll say my ideal situation for me is still to trade up and get one of the big 4. Unless the price gets too high, then I'm okay with sitting, and I wouldn't be willing to sell the franchise just for one guy, even though I would be willing to move up. There's a difference between the two, I think. So that's kind of where I stand now is, if possible, if it costs, my limit is 3 firsts, and I'm not willing to go over that, but I personally would be willing to give up 3 firsts. So the 2 this year and next year, I would do that to move into the top 3, the 3rd pick or 4th pick, we'll say. But if it costs more than the 3 first, I'm out. I'll sit at 11, 23, whatever, and see what there is. So that's kind of my ideal scenario if it came down to me.
Yeah, I think where I stand right now, my ideal scenario would be giving up 3 first-round picks to get up to 3 and grab Drake May. I feel like, obviously the best quarterback in this draft is Caleb Williams. However, he is almost certainly going to be a Bear. So I've thrown him off the table completely, barring something absolutely insane happening. But yeah, I like Drake May more than I like Jaden Daniels, and I think it sounds like the Commanders might be taking Jaden Daniels at 2, although we really don't know. So I think my ideal situation right now is moving up to grab Drake May. As for, I'm willing to give up quite a bit. So I'd be willing to give up 3, maybe even 4 first-round picks. I think the Bills GM made a great quote on this. He said when they traded up for Josh Allen, he said, he got asked, was it too much or something? And he said, either if he works out, no one will care about the picks we gave up. And if he doesn't work out, I won't even be here. So, that's kind of my mentality with this right now. And you want a quarterback, you have to, go get your guy. And the Vikings are set up to do that very well. It's a great situation for whoever comes in, whether it's Bo Nix. I mean, even if it's a guy like Bo Nix or Jaden Daniels or Drake May or anyone in between. So that's where I stand as of right now.
Yeah, if you had to trade up, like everyone's been talking about the past few weeks, into that number 4 spot to get JJ McCarthy, I mean, we've said it before. If you identify a guy you want to move up to get him without, as Joel said, overpaying, I mean, you do it. These are NFL GMs and scouts that are better than us couch potatoes who sit and pretend we know what we're talking about. I mean, we might not like it, but at the same time, we have to support whoever the pick is. So if it is JJ McCarthy, great. If the Vikings do feel risky and want to try moving up into top 3, maybe see if Washington's willing to trade. If you give them an enticing offer to try to go get like a Jaden Daniels, go for it. But it seems like they're content where they are, trying to trade up and get McCarthy. Now, I would like McCarthy to slip potentially to 11 just because then we wouldn't have to trade up or anything. But yeah, I mean, just where we're at, it sounds like things are just going to stay the same unless barring something drastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned risky. That was perfect. I'm trying to find the exact quote. I don't know if you guys listened at all to the Kwesi press conference yesterday. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, the Vikings GM, held a press conference. I think it was just kind of pre-draft talking about some stuff. I actually wasn't listening live. Normally, I always listen live anytime him or Kevin have a press conference. I didn't yesterday, but I did see some quotes swirling around, and I'm trying to find the exact one. He said something about risk, and it was amazing, and I wanted to clap for him because it was exactly what I was thinking. So let me find it. Let's find it. He said something about, okay, I think I found it. He said, just because something is risky doesn't mean you have to stay away from it. That's my GM right there. That is my GM right there. And yeah, so.
Yeah, I mean, we've really, I mean, in the draft, we've never really seen this franchise take a big risk. So when we're potentially even talking about this, and I think a lot of the people do think the Vikings are like probably the top team that are going to make a move to trade up. It's kind of exciting, but it's also like that risk. It's exciting, it's scary, and it's definitely going to be it's definitely one of the most interesting drafts I can remember in my time of watching this team. So the Vikings have never, I don't think they've ever even traded. I don't remember the last time they traded up in the first round. They traded back into the first round to grab Teddy Bridgewater at 32, and that's the last quarterback they've taken in the first round. So it's going to be super, super interesting.
Yeah, I'm just looking here. I don't know if I was just looking at a list of Vikings quarterbacks that have been drafted in the first round. Tommy Kramer, here he was in the first round. Dante Culpepper was. Let's keep looking. Christian Ponder and Teddy Bridgewater. And those are their 4 quarterbacks they've drafted in the first round in their history. And a couple of them have worked somewhat. One of them hasn't, namely Christian Ponder. That didn't really work out, and Rick Spielman got the boot for that. Also for more, but. And then Teddy Bridgewater, personally for me, I'm never willing to count Teddy Bridgewater as a bust. I'm never going to be able to say that because there was a time where he was, that year, I believe he was the top quarterback prospect for a while beforehand, right? Matt, are you okay?
So Teddy Bridgewater gets hurt, and you're not going to label him a bust, but Lewis Seen gets hurt, and now you want to label him a
yes,
bust.
I'm going to defend
what
it.
The heck are we doing here?
No, I'm going to defend it. Teddy Bridgewater, before he got hurt, he played 2 seasons pretty much. He played a lot of the 1 year, and then his second season, he played the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
Teddy Bridgewater showed signs that he could be a great player. Lewis Seen never really did that. I think that's the difference for me, is that Teddy Bridgewater, quarterback is different than any other position because for the most part, players drafted in the first round are somewhat of an expectation is to step in right away and make a contribution to your team. Quarterback, it's a bit different though, just because of the nature of the position. That's what I think the difference is Teddy Bridgewater didn't start day one, but he came in and showed signs even his rookie year. And then that 2015, is that correct? 15 season? Yeah, he was drafted in 14. So the 15 season showed signs. Lewis Cine pre-injury, granted, it was only a few games, small sample size, didn't really, to me, he didn't show much promise or he didn't get any playing time. And I think that's what separates me. You can disagree with me, and that's okay, but that to me is what separates Teddy Bridgewater from Lewis Cine in this case. That's why I'm going to call Lewis Cine a bust, but I'm not going to call Teddy Bridgewater a bust, is because Teddy Bridgewater was good pre-injury. Lewis Cine wasn't. That's the difference. So,
Okay.
That's that. But and people can disagree with me. That's absolutely okay. And I would understand if you did. Before that happened, we were just talking about quarterbacks. So, yeah, they've never drafted up in the first round for sure for a quarterback. As far as if they've ever drafted up in the first round at all, don't know. I guess I don't think they have, to my knowledge, but maybe they have. So if we look at a draft board, I mean, here's kind of what it is. We got obviously Caleb Williams. He's going to be the number one pick. Pretty clear cut right now. It would be a shocker if he wasn't. And then the somewhat consensus, but not necessarily, has been Jaden Daniels at number 2. Probably to the Washington Commanders. Don't think they're going to trade out of that pick. They have cap space. They have an opportunity in the coming years to make something big. So they probably wouldn't trade it. And Jaden Daniels is probably the best quarterback on the board at that point. We're going to get to who the best quarterback and things about them in a little bit here. We're going to have some great intel from an absolute expert coming up. So that's that. And then we got Drake May, former number 2 consensus, dropped now. What's that guy's name? I forget his name. Said he'd get your job fired. Or do you guys see that? Former
analyst, yeah.
Or I don't know if he's an analyst, but former big football mind. And he was like, if you draft Drake May, he's the kind of guy that'll get you fired. So we'll have to see what that happens. To me, I don't buy into that kind of a thing. You never know. So that's that. And then we got JJ McCarthy, who is probably the number 4, but no matter what, you'd have to trade up to get any of those. Then we got guys like Michael Penix out of Washington, Bo Nix out of Oregon. If anyone's wondering why Michael Penix isn't in the thumbnail for this video, it's because I couldn't find a sticker of him on the app I used to make thumbnails, but I could for all the other guys. So that's why there's no Michael Penix in the thumbnail. Otherwise, I would have put him. So I guess, yeah, we'll see. And there was another quote that I'll see if I can find. He said something about we're in love with multiple quarterbacks, he said, which is important. And that he also said we're in love with multiple quarterbacks, but at a certain price. So if they don't love a quarterback enough, they're not gonna move up too much, or at least that's what we can pretty safely assume Kwesi meant by that. So we'll have to see how they value each guy. If we look at a draft board, though, again, Chicago seems pretty clear. They're going to stick. Washington's probably going to stick around. And then at 3, we have the Patriots. And that's an interesting one. So Patriots could move, but they could probably get a pretty decent haul. But they could take a quarterback, one of those top quarterbacks, but they have no team. So what do you guys think the Patriots would do if Elliott Wolf was at the 3rd pick? He's getting phone calls. He has Drake May and JJ on the board. What do you think the Patriots would do right now?
I just had the chance to look at the Patriots roster, and it is one of the worst in the NFL. And I don't think, even if you do hit on this quarterback, even if you draft Drake May or JJ McCarthy, whichever one, or even Jaden Daniels if he falls to 3 and the Commanders take Drake May, whatever, I just don't think that I think even if he is good, I mean, he doesn't really, who's he going to work with? I legitimately think KJ Osborne might be their best wide receiver. And I think trading down to 11 and 23, getting yourself 2 extra picks, plus if the Vikings want to come up and give a 3rd round pick next year, you'd be sitting with 2 first round picks next year, one of which will probably be your pick, which is pretty high because the Patriots are not going to be good next year. So they're in the middle of a rebuild, and I think their best option is to trade down. Now, that might just be me because I want to trade up super bad, but I have a feeling that I think the Patriots' best move would be to trade down and get 2 great players in what is an awesome draft class.
I could see that. I mean, you have KJ Osborne and Jalen Reagor, so that's a great 1-2 punch for any rookie quarterback coming into the league. I like where you're at. The only thing I would think is a little weird is you're probably going to have to roll with Jacoby Brissett or Bailey Zappi as your bridge quarterback for a year. And who's even going to be coming out next year? Whereas do you think they're going to be better than a guy from this draft class? So there is definitely options. Patriots can obviously trade back, but I think they'll just stick where they are at and try to get their quarterback. And then it'll be a rough process to try to get more talent to come through. But I really hope Samo's right and the Patriots want to trade back so we can get up to number 3 and get a guy like Drake May. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, I'm no college football expert, but who are the big quarterbacks next year? I know Quinn Ewers, the Texas guy, and
Jalen Milroe.
What-
Milroe will be up there. It's I don't like to judge next year's classes because obviously they still have one more year.
A long
Like
ways off.
we saw Joe Burrow become the consensus number 1 overall pick over the span of a year and stuff like that. So, I mean, you can say there's all these top guys. I don't think this quarterback class is going to be as good as the one this year, but I mean, next year with if the Patriots get the number 1 overall pick, which they have a pretty good shot at, I'd say, I mean, I think they'd be great off drafting a guy like Quinn Ewers and then pairing him with like one of the 100 good receivers that's in this draft class, like Brian Thomas or Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze or any of these guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, just thinking about it, the Patriots, they could heavily benefit from the 11th and 23rd because they could get a guy like Penix, Nix at 23 or 11, whichever, maybe even McCarthy if he falls, but obviously we wouldn't know that. And then at that other pick, they could take one of those receivers, and that would probably be a better situation than just taking Drake May at 3 and then having a horrible roster around him. Because, I mean, that's kind of what happened, obviously, to the Panthers this past year. They took Bryce Young, but they had an awful team. So I guess I didn't watch much Panthers football. So how much of that was on like Bryce Young and how much of that was just on the fact that he had no one to throw to and their team was just horrible?
I didn't watch a ton of Panthers either. I did just like I looked into the Panthers a little bit, and the consensus, at least amongst Panthers community, is that Bryce Young, none of it was Bryce's fault. And that now again was one of the worst rosters in the NFL. And I don't think it's going to be a whole lot better this year, but I think Bryce Young just needs to develop. You need to get guys around him. You need to get guys for him to work with, and that's the most important thing for him.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that leads to a quarterback success is your O-line play. And granted, Carolina probably had one of the worst O-lines. Yeah. They threw a lot of money. They overpaid for Robert Hunt, but they identified a guy that they think can help shore up their O-line. So if you give him an O-line, he'll have time to make, obviously, quarterback reads, and maybe Thielen can get open. They just traded for Deontay Johnson, so they're slightly improving at that wide receiver position, a lot better than it was last year. But, yeah, it's kind of like what Trevor Lawrence in his first year. A lot of people didn't really – he had a bad rookie season, but there was a lot of issues and turmoil going on within that organization. And then the next year he bounced back and played well. So hopefully that's the same thing for Bryce.
And I think the big thing with the Vikings here too, or we'll say the big thing with the Patriots, they're not going to get short-sighted on a trade because there's going to be multiple teams trying to get up. The Broncos are going to be trying to get up. The Vikings are probably going to be trying to get up too. And we can look around and find more teams, maybe even like the Raiders, because they're kind of in need of a unless they have their trust in Aiden O'Connell, who was a 4th, 5th round pick. So we'll see. But either way, yeah, there are going to be offers, and it's not going to just be one team trying to lowball them because it's going to be a competition for that pick. The good thing with the Vikings, though, is I'd say they have better draft capital than any other team, is just as far as their assets are, because they have 2 first-round picks this year, and a first-round pick this year is more valuable than offering first-round pick next year or 2 years from now, because then they can have that player and they can make an immediate impact right now. So that's the one thing the Vikings have the one up on. So that's why Kwesi was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers on that front. So let's go Kwesi for that. Another thing I thought about, or another thing I've seen, I haven't read into it much. We've talked about the Kirk Cousins tampering a little bit, and that's its own thing. Is the NFL going to do something? Are they not going to do something? Well, in a hypothetical scenario here, I believe the Falcons hold the 8th pick, if I remember correctly. In a hypothetical situation, the NFL grants a pick swap. The Vikings get the 8th and 23rd, and then the Falcons have the 11th. So just the 11th and 8th swap. Then what if the Vikings could trade to, say, 4-5 if there's still the 4th quarterback there? They wouldn't even need to give up next year's first, maybe, if they have that 8th pick, because then that team would only be moving back 3 spots, 4 spots. Yeah, and that's just a hypothetical situation, but probably not.
I mean, it's fun to speculate. It's fun to speculate, but even if something does happen and the Vikings do get a comp pick, I don't think the comp pick will happen till next year. So I don't know, because the NFL takes a while to look into these things.
An interesting thing I also thought about, that as far as I've seen, no one else has really ever pitched this online or on like Twitter or anything. This is just an idea. Let's say the Vikings aren't able to trade up and get their guy at whatever, top 3, 5, whatever you want to say. What if the Vikings stick at 11 or 23, pick their guy, and they trade the other first-round pick to a team maybe in need of that really likes a player on the board for a first round next year? Then they have 2 first rounds next year that they can move up and get someone in next year's draft. Again, that's kind of a long shot scenario, but I just that thought just occurred in my mind the other day, and I was like, I guess it's possible that could happen, that they trade one of their picks this year for a pick next year, and then they try to move up next year instead of this year if it doesn't pan out like they think. But
no, I think that could be something that's a possibility. And I mean, there's also this debate going on between Penix and Bo Nix and who's better, and I have my opinion on that. I'm sure a lot of people have their own opinions on that, but you could grab one of those. Hypothetically, you could grab either one at 23. I feel like Penix is going to go kind of high just because of how the QB market is and how valued quarterbacks are. But I mean, trade down from 11 to a team, if a team maybe, I don't know, has a late first round pick or doesn't have a first round pick, wants to come up and give you theirs next year, I mean, absolutely, I'd be fine with that.
Either way, I'd be surprised. Honestly, at this point, I would be very surprised if the Vikings picked at 11 and 23. Kwesi just loves trading. He likes making deals and looking at all situations. So I guess they could, but I'd be a little surprised if that happens. I think he'll do something, whether it's move up, move back, get some for next year. We'll just have to see. But so that's kind of that. So I mean, we look at the 4 pick. We got the Cardinals are 4. Is that correct? Yes. Cardinals could trade if they get the right offer, but Marvin Harrison Jr. is obviously on the board still, and he's probably, most people have said he's probably the best prospect. When you take away positions, single best player.
Yeah, so I'd agree with that too.
So I could definitely see the Cardinals sticking around. I mean, it seems like they kind of like Kyler Murray, but they also don't really like Kyler Murray. It's just a weird situation out there. So that's its own thing. And then obviously the Chargers at 5. It seems that they have their quarterback. So they could be open for business, but we'll just have to see.
A Justin Herbert trade is unrealistic. unfortunately. I think it'd be fun, but the Chargers, his dead cap is like well over 100 million. So it would put them in a point where they would have to like cut players and like cut a bunch of guys to make the trade work in the first place. So it just doesn't make sense. They're kind of stuck with Herbert for at least the near future. And even if Harbaugh realistically wanted to move on, he knew that coming in that he was going to have Herbert, and he seems to be fine with that.
This was fairly recently. I was talking to an uncle of mine. He said something about Justin Herbert being a Viking. He's like, oh, that'd be so fun to watch and this and this. And in my head, all I could think is, personally, I don't know if I agree with that. And it's not because of Justin Herbert as a player. He's a marvelous player, but he was drafted in 2020, so he's the same as Justin Jefferson. He's about to be eligible for big money. So to me, it just doesn't make sense to do that. I would rather just take a chance on a rookie quarterback that has a cheap deal. I wouldn't want to trade for Herbert and then have him for like one season, and then just like that, you're paying him $40 million a year, whatever he's going to be commanding. So
yeah,
sure, it's a fun idea, but I won't do it. I'm just not a fan. But that's just me. So unless anyone else has any thoughts on that, I guess we can go more specific into the quarterbacks and the players themselves. Unless anyone else has anything to add on everything we've touched on so far. So actually on screen right now, we have a resident college football expert here, grinding film, watching film breakdowns, not finding the all 22 mans, but that's okay. His name is Sam O here, and he said that he has done a little bit of work on the draft class for quarterbacks this year. So I guess we'll leave it up to you. You can do this however you'd like and talk about these guys, and we can chime in on me and Matt and our less football knowledge than you. Matt has more than me, but at least more on college football. He has more than me. So yeah.
I mean,
you take this wherever you want to take it.
I threw up. I made some like initial quarterback rankings for the quarterback, how I think they would fare in Minnesota. So not necessarily overall, like what I think of these guys overall. But I think my number one option is going to be Drake May. And I think there's a lot of stuff Drake May does really well. There's some bad stuff that he misses. A lot of his misses come because of his footwork. He's got some stuff to clean up there. He tends to miss some shorter passes, which is kind of a red flag. But at the same time, I think you get him into Minnesota and you just drill that into him, drill footwork, work on that with him, work on fixing up these little things that all rookie quarterbacks have. And I think he would be my dream scenario, barring Caleb Williams falling, but that would be my number one dream scenario. And I would be willing to give up 3 first-round picks for that. As for number 2, I would actually favor JJ McCarthy over Jaden Daniels in Minnesota. And I don't dislike Jaden Daniels as a player. I think he has potential to be a very good quarterback in this league, but I do believe that JJ McCarthy, he's only 21, which I don't look into age that much when I'm looking at quarterbacks. I don't think it matters too much. You're still going to get the rookie deal. And when it comes down to it, if they're playing for your team by the time they're hitting retirement age, I mean, you probably hit on that quarterback and it doesn't matter. So I don't think age matters, but being 21, he does have some things that he does need to work on. He has some of his deep ball accuracies, especially outside the hashes, can be a big issue. However, I think, again, you get him working with our quarterback coach and Josh McCown. You get him working with Kevin O'Connell. You get him working with Jefferson. I think that would be a recipe for success. And I think either two of those guys coming in would be ideal scenarios for this team. And I would love seeing JJ McCarthy in purple because I've followed that dude his whole career, and it'd be fun to continue closely following him. So
I'll agree with you. I will just say I agree with the age doesn't matter, especially if it's on the younger side to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jaron Hall was 25 when they drafted him. That's a bit different, but granted he was only a 5th round pick. If he was a 1st round pick in 25, maybe that's a bit more of a red flag. But if they're 21, like you just said, that seems fine. So I'm assuming you were probably going to talk a little about Jaden Daniels here, but what kind of a player is Jaden Daniels? Because I haven't watched much LSU, where we know that JJ McCarthy is a bit more of a running quarterback and didn't see a whole lot of throwing, but saw some. Whereas Drake May, at least from what I know, is kind of more of a dual threat, can do some of both. Where does Jaden Daniels kind of fall in like the talent almost? If you see what
I
I'm saying.
mean, when it comes to talent, he's as talented as any of these guys, and I think when it comes to him, he has experience. He's only 20. He's only 23, which for this class, well, actually that's pretty old, but he's 23. So a lot of his success kind of came over this 1 year, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but you do have 1 year of really good college tape. And then his 2022 season was pretty good. 2021 wasn't great, but these last 2 seasons have been good. And obviously this season he had an amazing season, winning the Heisman Trophy. He is a very good runner, and he can get out into the open field, make guys miss. The problem I have with him is he tends to get hit. And when he gets hit very hard. And if you watch him run, I mean, there's some games where he just gets popped and he looks like a rag doll going down. And that's something that scares me, because it's one thing to get hit by a dude that's going to be applying for day jobs in a month. It's another thing to be getting hit by a guy that's been an NFL linebacker for 5-10 years. So that's something that really scares me. As for his throwing, he can throw the ball fine, and I haven't done as much I haven't looked into his mechanics and his film breakdowns and all that as much as I have with Drake May and JJ McCarthy. But I think as for the style goes, and the style that Kevin O'Connell likes to play, I think having JJ McCarthy or Drake May over Jaden Daniels would be ideal for me. However, obviously it's their choice, and I wouldn't be mad if we drafted Jaden Daniels at all. And I think wherever he goes, I think if he goes to the Commanders, that's a great fit too. So those are kind of the three. Those are the three of the big four that, any three of them I could see getting drafted by the Vikings. But yeah, that's how I'd rank them. And then so far where I stand on trade up quarterbacks.
Have you looked much into like Bo Nix and Penix?
So the consensus for this on Twitter and amongst a lot of NFL fans is Penix is better than Nix, and you'd rather have Michael Penix than Bo Nix. I actually disagree with that. I think Michael Penix was a great player at Washington. You watch his highlights, he makes some amazing throws. He'll split defenders. You'll see him make a crazy throw to the sideline that's like perfect. And a lot of people make the argument that don't like Penix. Well, he threw to Jalen McMillan and Roma Dunze and these three guys that are going to be in the NFL. And I don't think that affects him. I still think he was a great college player, but some of the misses that guy has and some of his throws that aren't good are alarming and very concerning with me. I don't think, if there's a quarterback that's going to be a bust this year, I think the first one is Michael Penix. So I would be a little upset if we just settled with him, and I would rather draft somebody at 11 and grab Bo Nix at 23, because I actually think Bo Nix has some very good qualities. He's been in college for 6 years, which it's kind of a double-edged sword, which means he has some stuff, like he's made the most starts out of anyone in the history of college football. So he has experience already. Again, I don't really care about age, but he does probably have some things that he's not really going to be able to adapt to because of how long he's been playing this position at a high level. But I think he was honestly underutilized at Oregon, kind of in a way Justin Herbert was. And I'm not comparing him to Justin Herbert. I think Justin Herbert was a better prospect, obviously. But I think bringing in Bo Nix at 23 and getting him working with our coaches, and I think that's like my next ideal option over taking Michael Penix at 11. I would go best player available at 11, whether that's Dallas Turner, Johnny Newton, Byron Murphy, any of those guys at 11, and grabbing Bo Nix at 23. So that's kind of my hot take for this quarterback class, I guess. I don't really know, but that's kind of where I would rank these dudes. And there are some people that have Bo Nix over Michael Penix, but it's not a very large majority.
Mm-hmm. No one really has to take anything from what I'm about to say, but you just brought up age, so I'm just going to point this out. Bo Nix was born on February 25th, 2000, so he's currently 24. Penix was born on May 8th, 2000. He's currently 23, so there's only a few months difference between the two guys.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Just figured
Mhm.
I'd share that because I did look that up, and I think it was a little interesting where you said like Jaden Daniels, I think you said was 23 if I remember right. And
Yeah,
you
he's
said
23.
McCarthy is 21.
hmm
And I guess I don't know the other two. I guess Caleb Williams doesn't really matter what he is.
Caleb Williams is 21, I believe, or
Okay.
22, because he's the same. Yeah, he's 22, because I think he was in the same class as JJ McCarthy. He's a natural true 3-year junior, and then
Mhm.
Drake May is
He's 21. He's
So
21.
they were all three were in the same class, and that was that 2021 class or
Mhm.
20. Yeah,
At 21, that would have been my year.
yeah.
Matt, you were born in 2002, right?
Correct.
Oh, Drake May's only a month older than you. Just by
Now, there's going to be some NFL players that are
yeah.
younger than me. It's going to be weird.
I mean,
I've already
that's,
experienced that with the NBA. You see guys like Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren dominating, and here I am and not doing that.
yeah, that's what I think about like Connor Bedard, because I guess I don't know how
Yeah.
old you are, Sam O, but like I'm
Oh.
19.
He's younger than me too.
I was gonna say you're probably what 18, 19,
19, yeah.
and yeah, like he's I think 18, right?
Mhm.
Bedard,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
he's one of the best players in the NHL already, and I'm just a normal person. Like, but
There's
good for him.
that 17-year-old from Boston U who's up with the
So
Hobie
Breedy?
Baker. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was kind of that. So
I feel like
football
just
there.
fairly quick. I feel like Bo Nix would be fine, but I feel like that's settling. And
Yeah.
if we've learned anything of our time at UTVS, what do we not do?
Never settle.
We never settle. We were going to trade up and get JJ McCarthy. Bo Nix is a very accurate quarterback. It was the highest completion percentage all time for a single season
Mhm.
last year, right? Over 70%. Yeah, I think he'd be fine. I don't see any like growth. I think he's almost capped out at his ability, whereas JJ McCarthy, there is room to grow. There is room to improve, and he can be better than he is. That's just my thing.
I'll say that if the Vikings trade up, if they love all of these guys, let's just say those four, not including Caleb, so I guess those three, if they love them all, I would be okay with them trading up to say the fourth, fifth pick and taking the fourth quarterback off the board if they love them all. Because if you love them all, why would you trade to say 2 or 3 and spend an extra first when the gap isn't worth a first round pick, if you see what I'm saying? So I'm okay with that too. But to me, I guess I'm not a film expert. I know nothing about football. I'm just kind of a guy, you know. But the
You're
difference,
a Kwesi guy.
I was gonna say I am a Kwesi guy, but the difference for me is the big four, and then like we said, Penix and Bo Nix. There's a difference there, and it seems pretty clear that there is. But for me, with those top four, there's not a substantial difference. Granted, there is a difference, but it's not. At least I wouldn't say it's necessarily like a franchise-altering talent, crazy difference between them. So, but that's just me. So that's, I guess, kind of that there. Anyone else got anything on that front? So yeah, it's gonna be fun here. 2 weeks out from the Vikings potentially taking a franchise quarterback. I'll say this: would you guys be okay with the potential scenario that the Vikings get rid of one of their first and then get a guy next year and ride with Sam Darnold this year? It's not my favorite option, but it's not the end of the world. That's how I view it.
I don't love to wait. I'm not a guy who likes
I agree.
waiting. And I mean, agreeing to having the Sam Darnold season is going to be like, I mean, I think Sam Darnold could win us 7-8 games, but I don't think it's any more than that.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, that's just something to think about there. If you, and you don't know much, I was going to say you're not a college football expert, but you know more than we do. If you had to put Shador Sanders and Quinn Ewers in this year's class, where approximately would they fall?
I think Ewers would be
up there with like the Drake Baines and
it's
Jaden
tough
Daniels.
to tell because these guys' draft stock get affected so much by what they do at the combine and if they go to this and if they're a senior level guy. But I think Ewers would be up there. I feel like Shador is like a day 2 guy right now, but I feel like Shador could easily grow, and I feel like there's a very good chance he's a first-round pick next year.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't Dion just think that like Shador is like the next great thing? From what I know.
Yep.
That's what. Yeah. I always just think it's funny. The Colorado football, it's just funny to think about because like they went from horrible to now they got all the hype, and then just a few weeks later, everyone forgot about them again already. That was like such a quick turnaround after the Dion deal and all that.
Yeah, and I like what's happening over at Colorado. They've been very active this offseason and grabbing guys in the transfer portal, and they have a solid recruiting class coming in. So Dion's doing good work over there, and I'm definitely intrigued just as a college football fan in general of like what's going to happen with that program.
And with all this realignment that's going to happen and the expansion of the playoff.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because they were also, and they struggled, but they did. I mean, they played one of the toughest schedules in the country. They had to play Oregon. They had to play USC. They had to play, did they play Washington? I don't know. But they had to play like the Pac-12 had so many good teams.
Yeah, they played Oregon State, Utah,
Arizona, all great teams. So they only won 4 games, but I think if they played in like the Big Ten, they would have won like 6-7 games.
Is it this upcoming season already that UCLA and USC are moving to the Big Ten? Is that this year?
All that realignment's happening this year.
Then Colorado's going to the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Oh, interesting. It's just so weird because the Big Ten is like a Midwest conference, and now we got these California teams in it, and now it's just gonna like probably screw the Gophers over because, I mean, the Gophers football was all right, but never like super outstanding except for like a little bit here and there. That's kind of the whole PJ Fleck era has been. And now we got UCLA and USC coming into the Big Ten. That's probably going to whoop them.
Yeah, then in a year or two, maybe Florida State and Clemson could end up joining the Big Ten. That's what the rumors sound like.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
You think they're always going to be able to stick with like a Power 5, or is there just a time where it's just going to like combine into like 2 or 3 conferences?
It's going to come to a time when the Big Ten and the SEC are the 2 big conferences, and they sign like an agreement. It's not like a merger, but it's like an agreement between the 2 conferences to like basically say that like, hey, we're gonna agree to contend, and we're gonna agree to like be together on all these issues and whatever happens. So they sign like an agreement. I don't know the exact thing of the agreement, but it's basically that's what's going to happen eventually within the next couple of years. I also think Notre Dame within 5 years will be in the Big Ten for everything. They're already in it for hockey, but for every other sport, they're going to be in the Big Ten eventually. So
what? Because I know in football, Notre Dame's independent, and isn't BYU independent too?
No, they're in the Big 12 now.
Yeah, that's right. They moved to the Big 12.
Were they previously independent though?
They were previously.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Isn't Notre Dame in a conference for everything else though?
They're ACC for basketball, baseball, most other sports. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. It's interesting how they're able to make something like that work, but
they're only independent because of their big deal they signed with NBC. That's why they consider themselves independent for football.
Yeah, how are they able to like do that almost and not like have to? So do they? Hold on. Does like their athletic director do they just schedule them to play against one conference pretty much then?
A mixture of ACC and Big Ten, and then the rivalry game with USC. Of late, they've just kind of been ACC heavy when they schedule.
Yeah. And it's like the same kind of like that every year, where it's for the most part kind of the same teams, or do they like move around to all the conferences?
No.
Of late, it's been kind of ACC. But given the new playoff realignment, they're gonna get the short end of the stick as they're independent, so they need to join a conference soon.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So there you go. This has been Soul of the Skull. We've talked about football and college football and Notre Dame and Big Ten, the Gophers, literally everything. But I think with that, I think we can just briefly go into the spreadsheet a little bit. There's not really that much in there, but just kind of to just look at. We haven't filmed in like a month now, so
yeah.
Here's the spreadsheet. Here's our predictions. Next, pretty much draft is when most things are about to happen. So again, here nothing's happened. These were marked a while ago. You said Fields would be the starting quarterback for the Steelers. Marked it red, took it off the board. Then that was pre-trade. Then the Steelers traded for him, so I put it back on. Now it seems like they've said Russell Wilson will be the starter, so I put it back in red, but we can always revisit it for the 8th time if Fields does. I don't see why they're starting Russell Wilson over Fields, though. Anyone know why?
They said why. I think they want him to learn or something, but I don't understand it.
What does he have to learn? He's been a quarterback for like 3 years.
He never really had that time to sit behind a veteran, and maybe that's what they're trying to see is, hey, sit a year, learn from Russ.
Mike Tomlin doesn't want a losing season.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't matter who he starts at quarterback. He'll have a 9-8 season.
I feel like it's almost too late, though, to have Justin Fields sit behind him. I could be wrong, but when you've been a starting quarterback for, I don't know, how long has it been? 2-3 years maybe now? I feel like now you've seen enough where like you don't have to sit because now you know what you're doing. Whether you're good or not, you at least know what the NFL is now. So, little question mark to me, but that's just me. You also said Ryan Tannehill would be on Netflix quarterback. Well, it looks like that's not even happening because
it's a wide receiver now.
So, looks like otherwise Tannehill is a great selection for that show. Very Marcus Mariota-esque. So that's that. We got a couple. You got some draft ones. You also said a Dalton Reisner one. He's still on the market. Nothing's happened. So we'll see. Over here, we got our stats. Currently, I've 2 for 2. Sam Z is 0 for 2. Big Lou's still had nothing come off the board. Matt is 0 for 4 so far, and Sam is 1 for 5. That is last season. Sam Z took the victory allegedly. He allegedly won, and that's that. Again, here's our game picks. There's nothing here. That's really the only game that's been determined. Packers, that's going to be a good game. That's going to be a good game. Also, for any of you weird football fans like me that care about uniform stuff, the Browns are changing their face masks to white. I put that in the group chat, which looks good. Their white ones look better than the black face masks, personal opinion. So that's a great choice by them. Also, the Lions uniform reveal is April 11th. The Broncos is April 22nd. And the Texans is April 23rd. And then the draft is the 25th through 7th. So that was just for anyone curious about that kind of a thing. Last season, Sam Z also allegedly won. Sam Z also made a mock draft that we're going to go through, but he's not on this episode, so we're not doing that. Here are the prospect visits. That's the list of their draft picks over here on the right. Over here, we've got all the players they've met with at some point, at least that I've seen reported around Twitter and stuff. So they have private workouts with Drake, Jaden, JJ, Penix. They've also talked with Bo Nix, but they haven't had – actually, never mind. They have had a private workout.
They're meeting with Jaden Daniels this week. So, that's
coming up soon here. A couple other random guys. Some of them are local guys, so they don't actually count as top 30, even though they're kind of labeled that way. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, I think the Louisville quarterback, I think he's from...
Anix said he's not Louisville either. He's Illinois State, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, my bad. I'll fix the colors later.
Former Gopher starter for like 4 games.
Same with this guy, too, the Northwestern guy. He must be a local guy.
Yeah, he's from Minnesota.
That's why. We just look around here. They've got a couple tackles and players and defensive tackles and edge rushers and stuff they've been looking at. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys know anything about this guy. I think he was the rookie of the year in the CFL. I think, when does the CFL play? What season? I don't even know.
That's more of like a summer league, and Samo left. So,
bye Samo. That's okay. I think
We're close to wrapping up anyway.
Yeah, we're about to wrap up soon. I think he was the rookie of the year last season. This Quantes, I thought it was with a T. I might spell it wrong. Hang on. I thought it was Stiggers, but it could be wrong here. Oh, yeah, it is with a T. My bad. I spelled him wrong. So that's that. Back to the spreadsheet. So, yeah. Here's just kind of the list of guys they've met with. Latu, the edge rusher out of UCLA. Dallas Turner. Those are options at the 11th if they stuck at 11. I believe Quinyon Mitchell. He's a first-round projection, right? That guy.
He could be. I'm not sure.
Okay, well, I know they met with him, but we would just love if they drafted another corner in the first round because everyone loves that. All of us Vikings fans. Gives us the Rick Spielman syndrome. If we look at the Vikings roster, not much interesting. They currently, as of now, have $17 million in cap space, a little under. Actually, it's a little less than that because I always go by over the cap. Over the cap currently has 66 players accounted out of the 67. For some reason, Kamu Grugier-Hill, his contract has not been reported. So he's not in that number. And then the draft takes usually about 8 to 10 million. So it'll be a little lower than that. So an effective cap space, they have, we'll say, $6 million maybe. So that's probably what they actually have, even though that's what it is as of now. When you factor in his contract and the draft, they have, in reality, about $6 million. So that's that. I guess we can just look down here at the free agent list. Here are free agents that, to my knowledge, haven't signed anywhere. I can do another update because I haven't done it in a bit. Cam Akers, a couple other random guys. Dalton Reisner, I know, is still on the market. Really, those are the only two, I'd say, somewhat major players are Cam Akers and Reisner, but we'll see. So that's that. Otherwise, I think that's pretty much it here for the spreadsheet. So we can end that. And that pretty much does it, I think, for our episode. Good football talk. Good talk about non-NFL football. Lots of different things. So good stuff. Any last thoughts before we end this one? Again, like was said at the beginning of the episode, hopefully we'll be back next week again. Hopefully we can find a time that makes it work, that we can make work, so we can do another one before the draft. That would be fantastic if we could. As always, we'll be ready as much as we can in case there's like an emergency Vikings trade into the top 3 before the draft or something like that. We'll try to be ready for that as well. Otherwise, hopefully we can film again next week. Hopefully Thursday. It just worked Friday better for people this week. So hopefully we can do it next week. And then we will, as of now, all signs point to being live on April 25th, that Thursday night, for the first round of the draft for a live reaction and a live episode. With that, that does it for this one. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. Good night. Have a good day.
Afternoon, night, whatever you're watching.
I used to always say have a good night on my other channel. I'd always say that. It is not night. Have a good day. Peace out. And as always, SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings.
We'll see you guys hopefully next week.